Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway in the ReliefFactor.com studio. So glad you were with me. One of the best minds in politics is Alex Conant. He is at Firehouse Strategies. You can follow Alex at Alex Conant on Twitter. You can follow Firehouse Strategies. This is going to be tough for the Steelers fans. Firehouse Strat. S-T-R-A-T, Firehouse Strat. Otherwise, the Steeler fans will be lost looking for firehouses. No, Firehouse Strat on Twitter. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Hugh. Thanks for having me.
Did you watch the Browns romp over the Jets last night?
I did not, but I sort of saw that coming. Congrats.
That's one strike. That's one. If you're not watching the Browns on Monday night, that's one strike. Let's go immediately. I have been saying for 6 months, this is a 3-state election. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Apparently, Firehouse Strategies and Optimus polling agrees with me because you polled those 3 states. Do you agree with me? It's going to come down to those 3 states again. Nothing else is likely to change.
I 100% agree with you. So Firehouse Strategies and Optimus, for the last year, we've been polling those 3 states about once a quarter because I think we agree, like the election's going to come down to those 3 states plus Florida. Although Florida's been trending Republican recently. If the Democrats have to win those 3 states, if Trump wins one of those 3 states and holds all those others, he's going to get reelected president. And so that's where we're paying a lot of attention. I know the president was in New Mexico last night. The Democrats are talking about Texas. I think they're both trying to expand the map. I think at the end of the day, these are the 3 states everyone's going to be watching. So we're trying to do whatever we can to learn more about those states.
Yeah, the Republicans talk about New Mexico and Colorado. Yeah, maybe. And the Democrats like to talk about maybe Iowa. Maybe they can flip Florida. No, it's not going to happen. Missouri's off the board. Ohio's off the board. They're deep red states now. These 3 are genuine battlegrounds. So what does your polling show you about Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin?
So according to our new poll, which, as you pointed out, everyone can read the details at firehousestrategies.com. According to our new poll, as of today, if Biden were the Democrat nominee, he would beat Trump in all 3 states and therefore be elected president. If either Bernie or Warren is the Democratic nominee, then as of today, Trump would win at least Michigan and therefore be reelected president. But I would just say that there's a lot of caveats in here. One being, no matter who it is, it's going to be a close race in those 3 states, which you would expect. That's what makes them swing states. And second of all, obviously we got a long way to go, and a lot's going to change over the next year, especially once we know who the Democratic nominee is, and the Trump campaign gets to work on defining him or her if it's Elizabeth Warren.
Now, margin of errors in these head-to-heads. And by the way, I would encourage everyone to go to Firehouse Strategies. It's right smack in the middle of the stage, the Firehouse of the page. Firehouse Optimist 2020 general election poll, because this is the serious stuff. Forget the nationwide poll. Doesn't matter what California's going to do. Doesn't matter what Texas is going to do. Doesn't matter what Florida's going to do, because they're all going to vote the same way. These 3 were borderline Trump wins, and he's got to deepen it. Let's talk Pennsylvania, which I think is Trump's strongest state among these 3. Do you agree with me, Alex?
I think he's actually strongest in Michigan if Biden is the nominee, because Biden has some special strengths in Pennsylvania. Obviously, he's from Scranton. He represented Delaware in the Senate for a long time, so he just has a lot of name ID in the Philadelphia media market. So I would say either Michigan or Pennsylvania are going to be the strongest. Wisconsin, for whatever reason, seems to be trending away from Trump. The midterms were really brutal for Republicans in Wisconsin, and he's consistently in our polls polled the worst in Wisconsin and done much better in Michigan and Pennsylvania.
Why do you think that is? Because Wisconsin is the most burned over electoral district in America. They've had like 20 elections in 5 years on different things. Supreme Court justices, governors, presidents. Every voter is known, identified, and capable of being turned out. It's always an enthusiasm match. So put them aside. Why is Michigan closer, more in play for Trump? It was such a crazy win 4 years ago. Why is that still on his board?
That's a great question. I think his tariffs are probably a lot more popular in a state like Michigan than they are in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is much more ag heavy, and so obviously farmers have been hit hard by the tariffs because of the risk, because of what China has done in return. And so you've seen a lot of dairy farmers going out of business in Wisconsin. Harley Davidson has been struggling in Wisconsin. just to give two examples. Whereas I think in Michigan, you've seen the auto industry doing a little bit better under Donald Trump. Also, there may be some demographic issues in play here as well. I think Wisconsin as a whole probably has more college-educated voters, which Trump has tended to underperform with. But again, I think that these are all going to be very competitive states. If I were Trump, if I were advising the Trump campaign, I would go camp out, especially in Michigan and Pennsylvania. I think it's fine if he wants to try to early in the race, go to New Mexico, try to put some other states in play. But he's really got to be spending a lot of time in those three battleground states, especially right now when you've got the Democrats essentially wasting time in states like Iowa, New Hampshire, which I think is likely to go Democrat again, South Carolina, which obviously is never going to vote for a Democrat. That's where they're spending all their time over the next 6 months. This is when Trump just can go camp out in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin all by himself and really lay some solid groundwork for three states, of which, remember, he only has to win one of them to win re-election.
Let me play for you a bit of the audience, a bit of the president in the Oval Office spray with the Crown Prince of Bahrain yesterday, talking about automobile workers. Cut number 8.
Well, I have a great relationship with the auto workers. I got tremendous numbers of votes from the auto workers. I don't want General Motors to be building plants outside of this country. As you know, they built many plants in China and Mexico, and I don't like that at all. My relationship has been very powerful with the auto workers, not necessarily the top person or two, but the people that work doing automobiles. Nobody's ever brought more companies into the United States. I have Japan and Germany and many countries have been bringing car companies in and opening plants and expanding plants, and big things are happening in Ohio, including with Lordstown. Very positive things are happening. We have many plants that are either being renovated or expanded or built new right now in the United States, many more than we've had for decades and decades. So nobody's been better to the auto workers than me. I'd like to see it work out. But I don't want General Motors building plants in China and Mexico. This was before my watch. And I don't think they'll be doing that. I don't think I had.
Alex, the president keeps talking about Lordstown. That's near and dear to my heart. That's my hometown. Warren is right next to Lordstown. All my buddies, dads, and moms worked at Lordstown. He is right. He does connect with the UAW.
Well, absolutely. I mean, he gives voice to, I think, blue-collar workers, the guys working on the assembly lines in these car factories in a way that previous presidents simply haven't. I mean, you get the sense that he wakes up every morning thinking about these guys and wanting to represent them, looking out for their interests. And I think that's why he's electorally overperformed with those sorts of voters.
So, Alex, that you've worked on presidential campaigns before. You were surprised by Trump, as I was surprised by Trump. Do the polls underpoll him because of a social cost aspect to saying you're pro-Trump in the wrong company? I mean, I always add 10 points to the national poll because they're always imbalanced to the coast. But what do you think about in your Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin polls? Do you think there's some undercounting there?
I trust our polls. So we poll three different ways, in part because polling is an art, not a science, and it's harder than ever to get people to answer their phones. And so what we do is we do traditional live calling, where it's a real human calling another human on their cell phones, asking them questions. But then we also do robocalls, where about a third of our calls are done by machine. So you're not talking to a human, you're talking to a machine. And then the last third is over text messaging. So it's really just filling out a survey online or on your phone. And what's remarkable is that the results are about the same no matter how we ask people. There's really not a bias one way or the other. And in the past, our polls have proven to be quite accurate. For example, our polls, we did polling in Wisconsin in 2016. I think our poll is one of the only ones out there that said Trump was either likely to win or had a really good shot of winning. Whereas obviously most of the other public polls showed him losing Wisconsin by quite a bit. So I trust our polls. I also think in general, people forget, but the national polls last time around weren't that far off. I mean, I think they had Hillary winning by about 3%, and she ended up winning the national vote by about 2%. But obviously it's not a national election. It's a state-by-state election, which is why we do the state-by-state polls And last time around, obviously, the public state-by-state polls were really off.
We're really off. Less than a minute, Alex.
Surprised.
If you were advising Brad Parscales running the president campaign, would you just throw everything online, on the ground, into those 3 states?
Yeah, I'd throw probably about 80% of my resources into those 3 states, and then I'd make sure that nothing funny happens in Florida. And you lock those down, you're going to get Trump reelected. So
that's what I think. That's what I think. Alex, we'll talk to you again when the next one comes out. FirehouseStrategies.com if you want to look at the internals. Follow Alex Conant on Twitter. Follow Firehouse Strategies at Firehouse Strat on Twitter. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.